Welcome to a presentation from the Nevada Department of Education. The Nevada Digital Learning Collaborative is glad to bring you the Planning with Digital in Mind video series, which is designed to provide valuable insights for adopting blended, personalized learning. This is the third of 5 episodes in the series. The Nevada Department of Education is committed to making the transition to digital learning smooth for all. The Department of Education places Nevada's students at the center of every decision they make. They are truly committed to seeing that all students succeed. Today, on behalf of the Nevada Department of Education, Kim Loomis will be presenting Standards as Opportunities, Blended Instruction within DOK 1 through 4. For the record, DOK is short for Depth of Knowledge. Welcome! I'm Kim Loomis. I've worked in the field of digital learning since 1999. I have over 20 years in the online and blended school setting, from teaching, designing digital content, professional development, and virtual school administration, to managing systems and processes for growing classrooms of the future. Let's get started. Before we jump into today's topic, let's define blended personalized learning. Sure, there's a formal definition with multiple parts, as defined by research conducted by the Christensen Institute, but let's keep it simple. Blended learning takes the best of online learning and matches it with the best of face-to-face instruction. Think about the best of online learning. It's always available. It can be accessed anywhere. You get immediate feedback. Students can pick up where they left off. The data is rich and thick on each and every student. Think about the best of face-to-face classroom instruction. In the classroom, it is easy to read students' faces and notice if a student is not feeling well or had a bad night. We love seeing smiles and building relationships with our students. We have the ability to organize small learning groups for peer-to-peer engagement and hands-on activities. Being a former high school mathematics teacher, I like to represent things in simple math terms. Blended personalized learning is taking the wisdom of classroom teachers plus the intelligence of technology to add up to a personalized learning space for each and every student. Note the 3 icons: a teacher, a computer, and a student. They are the foundation of blended personalized learning. Keep these 3 elements in mind as we move forward. Now, don't get me wrong when I say the intelligence of technology, because it's really not that smart. It's just a bunch of zeros and ones, making it very easy to check answers and adjust a learning path. But it's also not taking home papers to grade over the weekend. As for the teacher, your wisdom is so deep about instructional pedagogy, so much so that many of you have a master's degree. And we should never take the caring heart of the teacher for granted. As we kick off, it's important that we remember to focus on the core business of schools: relationships and learning. Even with the addition of digital content and technology as a tool for learning, we should never take the heart of the classroom teacher out of the learning process. Students' relationships with their teacher have an important positive and long-lasting implications for both academic and social development. Positive teacher-student relationships draw students into the process of learning and promote their desire to learn. As for the learning, maintaining high-quality academic instruction creates opportunities for thinking and analysis, using feedbacks effectively to guide students' thinking, and extends students' prior knowledge. When a student trusts that the teacher has their best interest at heart, they tend to be more engaged in the learning, behave better in class, and strive to obtain higher academic levels. Let us not forget peer-to-peer relations and opportunities for collaboration and communication among classmates. Picture a student who feels a strong personal connection to their classmates. They talk frequently using academic vocabulary and receive construction feedback and praise from each other. That's the power of relationships and learning. When we think about learning, we need to look at its underpinning structure. The foundation of every classroom is CIA: curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Just like a traditional classroom, blended learning classrooms are driven by the same 3 CIA elements, yet with unique qualifiers: digital curriculum, guided instruction, authentic assessment. Imagine data every time a student interacts with curriculum in an easy-to-read and digestible format. That is the strength of blended personalized learning, where the digital curriculum delivers content requiring less stand-and-deliver instructional methods, providing teachers with time to analyze student achievement results and guide classroom instruction in large and small groups, or working individually with students. And since there will be a traditional assessment in the digital curriculum as well as in the classroom instruction, in the blended classroom, filled with digital tools, students can stretch their thinking into authentic assessments, which require deep analysis, synthesis, creation, and peer-to-peer collaboration. The CIA of blended learning can be represented by a triple Venn diagram, where each circle represents one element. In this diagram, icons are used to provide a visual cue for each CIA element: a computer for digital curriculum, a teacher for guided instruction, and a student for authentic assessment, each representing 1/3 of the equation. To learn more about the CIA of blended learning, check out the Nevada Digital Collaborative video in this series titled A Balanced Approach, the CIA of Blended. Today we will be focusing on the teacher portion of CIA, guided instruction. Teacher preparation and planning for classroom learning is the backbone of every classroom. It's this attention to standards, selecting the best resources, and determining the ideal methods and modalities of learning that we will address today. Even with the addition of digital content and technology as a tool for learning, we should never take the heart of the classroom teacher out of the learning process. One thing digital curriculum cannot do is establish a relationship with students. That's why teachers will always remain the heart of the classroom. A teacher's heart can reach out and touch another's heart. Teachers' smiles, kind words, and sympathetic actions demonstrate caring. Technology cannot replace the human interaction that is so important to the learning and growing process. By releasing some of the instruction to the digital curriculum partner, the role of the teacher changes. Guided instruction is a completely new mindset in the blended classroom. Due to the diligent efforts in the planning phases, teachers will often find themselves as an observer in the classroom, as students and technology take the lead that day. This will allow teachers to soak in the learning, enjoying the fruits of their planning labors. At first, this may feel uncomfortable, even out of control, because you have released the learning to your digital curriculum partner and students. But you will get used to it as you learn to balance the three elements, or icons, of blended personalized learning: the computer, the teacher, and the student. Guided instruction begins with using the data from your digital curriculum partner to make informed decisions so that you can create learning environments that challenge and support all students, from filling skills gaps, ensuring basic understanding, and stretching students with higher order thinking skills. Teachers will use their wisdom-filled years of practice and draw on data from your own experiences to identify where students tend to struggle or need scaffolding. Teachers also need to identify essential standards and design instruction to ensure mastery to the appropriate depth of knowledge, or DOK. Instruction will come in many different shapes and sizes within the whole class, small groups, and one-on-one learning. Teachers need to design lessons and activities that stretch learners into strategic thinking, DOK Level 3. This will push teachers to consider how they can use peer-to-peer collaboration and open-ended projects with multiple pathways and answers, designing such tasks that are ripe for authentic assessment opportunities. Let the digital curriculum do what it does best: deliver low-level knowledge at the DOK levels 1 and 2. Use the data to make informed decisions and guide instruction. It will tell you who is on pace, who is understanding, what students are understanding, who needs more one-on-one time with you, or if the whole class needs additional scaffolds and supports. This data is rich, so use it to your advantage. As teachers partner with digital content, they can shift their classroom pedagogy, releasing some of the classroom instruction to the digital curriculum partners. Teachers will have more time to create active learning activities, releasing the learning to their students as well, possibly with stations and playlists. As teachers redesign classroom instruction, they have the ability to guide instruction into more open-ended strategic thinking opportunities. Just like the images in this slide, guided instruction may be conducted in a full class setting, in a small group setting, or in a one-on-one setting. Since you have released some of the learning to your digital content partners, you will have the data to know who will benefit most from your time. It might be the entire class, a small group of students, or an individual student. Student-teacher activities involve the most valuable and limited resource within the classroom, you, the teacher. In a blended classroom, you want to use your time and skills to maximize potential. This means doing what you do best, encourage and motivate students. Using your depth and breadth of knowledge of the standards, identify the appropriate academic standards, and even if they were introduced in the digital curriculum partner, it's your responsibility to ensure that students master these. So design learning experiences with multiple exposures, including peer-to-peer active engagements, and create memorable pathways for student ownership. Teachers will need to identify prerequisite knowledge and where students will need scaffolding, as well as where students might have misconceptions or areas that could be troublesome. Use this information to lead instruction, imparting your wisdom to the class. Teachers will also want to look for opportunities to stretch the learning with Socratic seminars, real-world applications, performance tasks, and possibly project-based learning opportunities. Finding that balanced approach of who leads, the computer, the teacher, or the student, will be difficult. Look for the sweet spot, each representing 1/3 of instructional practices in your blended classroom. Speaking of thirds and the CIA of blended learning, let's look at curriculum alignment as it pertains to planning instruction. Curriculum alignment is a fundamental principle of classroom instruction and a means to student success. It's important that teachers understand the CIA trifecta. Alignment means that curriculum is coherent, a common framework that aligns traditional curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Alignment starts with the instructional strategies and classroom assessments reflecting the language and intent of the standards. To achieve this type of alignment, teachers must know how to unpack the standards or decode the performance requirements embedded in them so that they can plan activities. Curriculum alignment includes reviewing the actual taught curriculum, comparing it with written and tested curricula to ensure coherence. Written curriculum is found in the standards and benchmarks produced by the state, your district, or possibly your school, specifying what is to be taught. It provides a clear understanding of standards and expectations. Taught curriculum is where the teacher actually delivers. This is where teachers must ensure instruction is on target and aligned to standards and expected benchmarks. Tested curriculum consists of that portion of the curriculum over which students have assessed via normed reference achievement test developed by national organizations or the state. There is a fourth curriculum, learned curriculum is the bottom line. It's what students actually learn. Clearly, it is the most important of all. We cannot ignore the fact that students learn best when the material is relevant to them, ideally aligning instruction and assessment with students' interest, engages students in, and promotes retention of learning. So how can we create learning environments that meet standards, assessments, and the interests of our students? How can teachers design actively engaging learning environments? To answer this, teachers must know how to unpack the standards or decode the performance requirements embedded in them. Standards, as they appear in curriculum guidelines, are typically competency-based and concerned with student outcomes. Virtually all curriculum documents address what a student should know and be able to do. Yet most documents do not explicitly name these categories. Teachers need to unpack the standards to decide exactly what a student is expected to know and to do. Unpacking standards allows for a richer understanding of what a standard requires, as written, and opens the opportunity to enhance it in a way that might better fit crafting guided instruction that is actively engaging and thought-provoking for our students. Unpacking is a technique teachers can use to make sense of standards and then create focused learning targets to make them actionable. Once you have unpacked standards to identify what students should know and be able to do, you can craft your vision of mastery for specific standards and align learning activities and accompanying resources, like when to release to your digital curriculum partner and/or to your students. There are 6 key steps to unpacking standards. 1. Read the standards. 2. Circle the verbs. 3. Underline the nouns and noun phrases. 4. Determine the number of targets found within the standards. 5. Write as a separate target goal. 6. Determine the depth of knowledge, or DOK, required of the standard. Using this method, the 5th grade mathematics standard was broken into 2 simple statements. Now it will be easier for the teacher to design learning environments that will meet the standard. This may entail allowing the digital curriculum partner to carry some of the load. It may also include peer-to-peer engagement activities, such as Find Someone Who. Standards guides teachers in what to teach, but not how to teach. That is where the wisdom of the teacher is needed to craft learning environments that meet the written, taught, and tested curriculum. So let's look at how we might do that using Webb's depth of knowledge, or DOK levels. Bloom's taxonomy was developed by Benjamin Bloom in 1956, later revised in 2001, as a framework for classifying learning based on different levels of cognitive rigor and complexity. Bloom's focuses on the verbs to classify the levels of thinking and various levels of taxonomy. The depth of knowledge, or DOK, was developed in 1997 by Norman Webb to categorize activities according to the level of complexity in thinking. DOK is about what follows the verb. What comes after the verb is more important than the verb itself. DOK is about the complexity of mental processing that must occur to complete a task. We can use DOK, or depth of knowledge, as a means of increasing the cognitive complexity and cognitive demand. In other words, rigor. DOK Level 1 asks students to recall and reproduce data, definitions, details, facts, information, and procedures. DOK Level 2 uses academic concepts and cognitive skills to answer questions, address problems, accomplish tasks, and analyze texts and topics. DOK Level 3 requires strategic thinking and pushes students to think strategically and reasonably about how and why concepts, ideas, operations, and procedures can be used to attain and explain answers, conclusions, decisions, outcomes, reasons, and results. DOK Level 4 involves extended, complex thinking and requires students to think extensively about what else can be done, how else learning can be used, and how could they personally use what they've learned in different academic and real-world contexts. Levels are established within the context, the scenario, the setting, or the situation, which students will express and share the depths and extent of their learning. When planning and guiding instruction, ask yourself, are students expected to acquire knowledge, DOK Level 1, apply knowledge, DOK Level 2, analyze knowledge, DOK Level 3, augment knowledge, DOK Level 4. DOK levels may seem to be scaffolded similar to Bloom's taxonomy. However, it is more focused on in-depth students will express and share their learning. DOK 1 is content specific, focusing on the specific text or topic being taught and learned. DOK 2 and DOK 3 are items oriented, focusing on how and why learning can be transferred and used to attain and explain reasons, relationships, and results. DOK 4 is extensive and practical, focusing on how and why learning can be transferred and used across the curriculum and beyond the classroom. Categorizing tasks according to the complexity of thought required is one way for teachers to create rich learning environments. You may be asking, how do I create these rich learning environments where all students learn at high levels? Depth of knowledge, or DOK levels, can help teachers meet that challenge. DOK levels categorize tasks according to the complexity of thinking required to successfully complete them. Level 1 is low-level recall and reproduction, or knowledge acquisition. Level 2 focuses on skills and concepts, or knowledge application. Level 3 extends to strategic thinking and knowledge analysis. Level 4 moves deeper into extended thinking and knowledge augmentation. When teachers have a better understanding of cognitive depths of the tasks they are using in the classroom, they can look to develop learning environments that improve the rigor of instruction. Just know that DOK levels are not sequential. Students need not fully master content with Level 1 tasks before doing Level 2 tasks. In fact, giving students an intriguing Level 3 task may provide context and motivation for engaging in a more routine learning than that at Level 1 and 2. Also, DOK levels are not developmental. All students are capable of strategic and extended thinking tasks. What they look like will differ. What is Level 3 to a kindergarten student may be a Level 1 task for a middle schooler. All students should have the opportunity to do complex reasoning. To find the right balance, ask yourself, what kinds of thinking do I want students to do routinely? What do I want my students doing? What's the most effective way to spend the limited classroom time I have? It's important to determine how often instruction will focus on tasks at each level, so that students gain the most from the learning opportunities you design. So let's take a closer look at each DOK level. As we do, start thinking about how you can plan active, engaging learning environments within each Level 1 is defined by knowledge acquisition. It is assessed via recall and reproduction. Tasks at this level require recall of facts or rote application of simple procedures. The task does not require any cognitive effort beyond remembering the right response or formula. Copying, computing, defining, and recognizing are typical level 1 tasks. On the card, there are some of the verbs associated with DOK 1, and notes that there is only one undeniable correct answer at this level, which makes it ideal for the technology to deploy and assess. Yet when looking at the CIA of blended triple Venn diagram, DOK 1 is shared among all three elements: the computer, the teacher, and the student. Many standards will require students to know facts, details, and definitions, apply a simple procedure or formula, and perform simple algorithms. Please note, a combination of level 1 tasks does not increase complexity. Depending on the standard, DOK 1 may include passive computer learning, teacher-led instruction, one-on-one tutoring, or active peer-to-peer collaboration engagements. Think about how you can design learning across all three elements to create student ownership. Level 2 is defined by knowledge application and can be assessed within skills and concepts. At this level, a student must make some decisions about his or her approach. Tasks with more than one mental step, such as comparing, organizing, summarizing, predicting, and estimating, are usually level 2. At DOK 2, students must conduct some mental processing beyond a habitual response. Tasks will require deeper knowledge than basic definitions, such as applying an application in a familiar or typical situation, or finding a relationship between ideas. There is still typically only one correct answer, again making it easy for digital curriculum partners to deliver and assess. For example, DOK 2 questions may ask, how can the steps of solving a proportion problem be applied to solving a percent increase problem? How did the researchers apply the scientific method to this experiment? How did the Revolutionary War affect the vote of the first president of the United States? You can see how these are well beyond simple recall and reproduction found in level 1. On the DOK card, there are some of the verbs associated with DOK 2. When looking at the CIA of blended triple Venn diagram, DOK 2 is again shared among all three elements: the computer, the teacher, and the student. Depending on the standard, DOK 2 may include passive computer learning, teacher-led instruction, one-on-one tutoring, or active peer-to-peer collaboration engagements. Think about how you can design learning across all three elements that creates student ownership. You can see how DOK levels 1 and 2 could easily be released to digital curriculum partners. Yet, not all standards may be found in the digital curriculum partners. That's where the wisdom of the teacher and proper planning can ensure that all standards are being met. Digital curriculum can be thought of as a teacher's aid with significant advantages. First, everyone gets one. An aid, that is. When partnering with digital curriculum, students are exposed to standards-aligned instruction in their own personalized learning space. This allows students to take ownership in their own learning by monitoring their own personal data, setting goals, and working hard to achieve them. Teachers can utilize data to drive individual and classroom instruction, knowing where one or many students are struggling. No matter how intelligent I say that technology is, it can only provide baseline instruction. It's great at providing low-level depths of knowledge, or DOK levels 1 and 2, basic knowledge and comprehension for recall and reproduction, plus skills and concepts. Of course, this is not enough, but it's a solid foundation for teachers to build upon. When you release to your digital curriculum partners, don't get hung up on the way the instruction is delivered. It may not be delivered the same manner that you might do, but that's okay. If you allow the digital curriculum to carry some of the low-level instruction, most students will learn. And since you released instruction to your digital curriculum partner, you now have time to conduct intervention for those who need you. When partnering with digital curriculum, students can pick up where they left off. They can take it with them when absent, thus possibly reducing gaps in learning. As mentioned earlier, not all standards, especially not all depths of knowledge within the standards, can be fulfilled by technology. Let's dig deeper into the DOK levels. Level 3 is defined by analysis, which calls for strategic thinking. At this level of complexity, students must use planning and evidence. Thinking is more abstract, a task with multiple valid responses where students must justify their choices would be level 3. Examples include solving non-routine problems, designing an experiment, or analyzing characteristics of a genre. DOK 3 requires higher levels of complex and abstract thinking, reasoning, and planning. There is no one correct answer, but multiple answers or approaches. At this level, students should be asked to provide evidence of their thinking, such as explain your thinking or justify your answer with evidence. Thus, DOK 3 questions may yield more than one correct answer, such that a computer can no longer assess students. A teacher is needed to take the lead and assess learning at this level. Again, check the DOK card for verbs associated with DOK 3. When looking at the CIA of blended triple Venn diagram, DOK 3 is shared by the teacher and the student. This is where the wisdom of the teacher becomes evident and important. Designing learning activities that are deep, thought-provoking, and includes the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking in engaging peer-to-peer settings. Review the standards. How can you craft lessons that require thought-provoking, rigorous contemplation? Think about how you can design learning activities that release learning and ownership to your students. Level 4 is defined by augmentation, which will require extended thinking. Level 4 tasks require the most complex cognitive efforts. Students synthesize information from multiple sources, often over an extended period of time, or transfer knowledge from one domain to solve problems in another. Designing a survey and interpreting the results, analyzing multiple text to extract themes, or writing an original myth in an ancient style would all be examples of level 4. DOK 4 is ideal for cross-curricular performance tasks or projects, as these would require complex reasoning, planning, and thinking with multiple steps. At this level, students are moving beyond just real-world applications by applying their thinking to new and obscure situations. It's easy to see how DOK 4 lies only in the authentic assessment portion of the CIA triple Venn diagram. Teachers can guide the instruction, but the student will take the lead, owning the learning at this point. Students may be asked to relate concepts within a content area and among other content areas. Students could be asked to apply strategic thinking processes over extended period of time, working alongside peers, building teamwork, persuasion, compromise, and problem-solving skills needed for careers, college, and citizenship. Look for opportunities within the standards to release the learning at DOK 4 to your students. It's easy to see how DOK 3 and 4 leads to opportunities to release the learning to your students. Look to push rigor to higher depths of knowledge into areas where there are multiple pathways and solutions as seen in DOK 3 and 4. Teachers can guide instruction by crafting student engagement and meaningful conversations around course content. When we start building classroom conversations and activities at higher depths of knowledge levels. Design instruction and assessment that calls upon the 4 C's: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Ideally, this is a time to design active engagement learning opportunities that require peer-to-peer interaction, which will also work towards building on skills needed in the world outside of school, such as teamwork, risk-taking, flexibility, initiative, social responsibility, and leadership. With technology at the student's fingertips, collaboration and communication is easy. And creation should entail critical thinking in a fun and active way. In the blended classroom, students should be using technology not only to learn, but to create work that demonstrates learning as well. This is also a time to use performance tasks and projects, requiring students to be critical and creative thinkers, working together in collaborative groups, and utilizing academic language to communicate their understanding. As we look to the standards, think about how new content will be introduced. Basically, content can be delivered in one of 3 ways. The teacher can take the lead and deliver new content. Generally speaking, direct instruction may be the most common teaching approach in the United States. Teacher-designed and teacher-led instructional methods are widely used in American public schools. Typically, teachers perform direct instruction using explicit teaching techniques to teach basic skills and concepts. Teachers are working hard planning and deploying instructional approaches that are structured, sequenced, and led by teachers. Teacher-led instruction may include lecture or demonstration format with embedded questions and/or activities to make sure that students have understood what they've been taught. Students consume the teacher instruction through audio and visual methods. Textbooks can introduce new content and help students develop basic knowledge and skills. Today, many textbooks have gone digital, but there are still some print copies in classrooms. When considering student consumption, student language and reading comprehension levels come into play. Like digital textbooks, technology can introduce new content in stimulating ways. There are a wide range of digital resources available, from open educational resources, or OERs, web-based applications, apps, numerous free online videos, as well as standards-based vendor packaged software. Students are excited to use digital resources in the classroom. Digital resources put students in the driver's seat. They are engaged in the curriculum, watching videos, partaking in quick checks for understandings, and trying out drag and drop simulations. This multimedia approach to learning content delivery allows students to take ownership in what they are learning. No matter the way students are exposed to new content, it's important that teachers design instruction that goes beyond consumption. Use the standards and DOK levels to design appropriate tasks with the needed complexity of mental processing that must occur to complete a task. Think about the context, the scenario, the setting, or the situation in which students will be asked to express and share the depth and extent of their learning. Are they expected to acquire knowledge, DOK 1, apply knowledge, DOK 2, analyze knowledge, DOK 3. Augment knowledge, DOK 4. Ideally, the more engaging the presentation of new content, with challenging and rigorous activities varied in modalities, should increase students' desire to learn and gain new knowledge. When students are excited about learning and take ownership in the process of making sense of it, we all win. Think back to the CIA of blended learning triple Venn diagram: digital curriculum, guided instruction, and authentic assessment. The three overlapping circles with the three icons: a computer, a teacher, and a student, which are the three key ingredients of blended personalized learning. Ideally, we are looking to reach the sweet spot in the middle. This is where the blended classroom has a balanced approach and a solid foundation in all three CIA components of blended. Let the digital curriculum do what it does best: deliver low-level knowledge at DOK levels 1 and 2. The strength of blended personalized learning is allowing digital curriculum to deliver some content requiring less stand and deliver instructional methods, providing teachers with time to analyze student achievement results and guide classroom instruction in large and small groups, or working individually with students. Using the standards and wisdoms of the teachers, classroom instruction should span all four levels of Webb's depth of knowledge. Use data to guide instruction and push the learning through DOK levels 1 through 3 into strategic, real-world applications and thinking. It's the responsibility of the blended teacher to create a learning environment that complements and extends the digital curriculum. Next, teachers need to design engaging activities ranging in DOK levels 1 through 4 that will extend the learning and stretch students by demonstrating mastery of concepts in creative, critical thinking, and collaborative ways, requiring students to embrace and take responsibility of their own learning, thus demonstrating mastery of concepts and skills. Remember, with all its zeros and ones that makes technology so intelligent, it generates so much data. Data on DOK levels 1 and 2. It's this data that becomes important in the new pedagogy shift. Teachers must take this data to guide instruction in the blended classroom. The data will tell you who is on pace, who is understanding, what students are understanding, who needs more one-on-one time with you, or if the whole class needs additional scaffolds and supports. This data is rich, so use it to your advantage. The three icons, a computer, a teacher, and a student, in the CIA of blended learning, remind us of the balance needed for a pedagogy shift to blended personalized learning. This is where the teacher partners with digital curriculum so that they can guide instruction with higher depths of knowledge, and students can take ownership in their learning while engaging in authentic assessment. Think in thirds, plan in thirds. 1/3 digital curriculum, partnering with digital content to deliver low-level basic instruction, which in turn frees the teacher up to provide more one-on-one and small group support. 1/3 guided instruction, utilizing the wisdom of teachers to ensure that the students grasp the appropriate depth of knowledge of the essential Empower standards, moving beyond DOK level 1 and 2 into strategic thinking, which includes whole and small group instruction, as well as crafting thought-provoking peer-to-peer active engagement experiences. 1/3 authentic assessment and student ownership. Move beyond traditional quizzes and tests. Embrace peer-to-peer experiences within the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. This may also include performance tasks and projects. Today we explored depth of knowledge and using standards as we look to create balanced blended learning environments. Low-level basic depth of knowledge should be found within the digital curriculum partners. This allows the teacher to identify where they must pick up, extend the learning, and find creative ways to release instruction to students. Blended learning takes a pedagogy shift, one that thinks in thirds: 1/3 digital, 1/3 teacher, and 1/3 student. So, you may be asking, how do you plan with digital in mind when partnering with digital content? It starts with understanding that if you, the teacher, will lead 1/3 of the time, that means 2/3 of the time you will release control to technology and/or your students. So, we better know our digital curriculum partners inside and out. Guided instruction is knowing when to release the learning to your digital partner and your students. It's about designing learning opportunities that embrace a wide range of depth of knowledge. It is the teacher's responsibility to ensure that standards are being met at the appropriate levels. They need to look for opportunities within the standards to create a balanced and actively engaged blended classroom. When using the CIA components for designing instruction, teachers should look at all three components and focus on units of instructions rather than individual lessons. This will lay the groundwork for learning over time and ensure a 1/3 balance across the unit of study. It will be challenging to move from a single focused teacher delivery system to one that releases instruction to digital content partners for delivery of low-level basic learning opportunities. The payoff is the data that is gained for each student, as well as the whole class, which will help guide instruction and open opportunities for authentic assessment. Utilizing the content standards, wise teachers will ensure that the appropriate depth of knowledge is attended to, as well as guided classroom instruction in large, small, and one-on-one settings. Teacher guidance should include scaffolding the learning to help overcome misconceptions. The artful teacher will look to create learning environments that stretch and extend the learning, looking for areas when students can take the lead in their own learning. Releasing to students should start with helping them to understand their role in their own learning process. Begin by helping students understand the meaning of grit, persistence, and flexible thinking. Students will also need to be comfortable in posing questions, seeking answers, and taking responsibility in classrooms where failure is supported and recognized as part of the process. It will be important to build these and other habits of mind in our students as we release control with guided activities of collaboration, performance tasks, and projects. So, where do you start, you may be asking? When using the CIA components for designing instruction, teachers should look at all three components and focus on units of instruction rather than individual lessons. This will lay the groundwork for learning over time and ensure a 1/3 balance across the unit of study. It will be challenging to move from single-focused teacher delivery system to one that releases instruction to digital content partners for delivery of low-level basic learning opportunities. The payoff is the data that is gained for each student as well as the whole class, which will help guide instruction and open opportunities for authentic assessment. First, tackle the digital curriculum. Lesson planning in the blended learning classroom begins with knowing what is inside the digital curriculum so that the classroom teacher may complement it. Teachers need to preview the digital curriculum and identify what students will be expected to know and be able to do. There are too many blended classrooms where the teacher had no idea what was in the digital curriculum. This would be like planning without cracking the textbook or reviewing the standards and flying blind. If teachers do not know what's inside the digital curriculum, how can they predict where students will need support and guide instruction? Teachers cannot wait until students interact with the digital curriculum and the data sends up a red flag. Teachers need to plan ahead. Start with identifying what's inside the digital partner and identifying tasks students will be asked to complete. Remember, digital partners will only provide low-level DOK level 1 and 2. Move to guided instruction. Once teachers knows what's inside the digital curriculum, they can plan for guided instruction. They will need to identify prerequisite knowledge and where students will need scaffolding or fill in gaps related to prior knowledge. These topics can be used as class openers to set everyone up for success. Teachers also need to identify where students might have misconceptions or areas that could be troublesome. These topics would be ideal for class closure activities to reinforce the learning. Digital courseware activities like discussions and pre-test material can be done offline in small and large group settings. Remember, it's a blended classroom. Blend the instruction too. Teachers will also need to identify additional resources that can be used to teach material, especially for students who need to see it in multiple representations and require extra practice. Resources can be used in one-on-one or small group settings for struggling students. From intervention to strategic thinking, guided instruction will span DOK levels 1 through 3. Wrap up with identifying authentic assessment opportunities. Teachers need to look for engaging activities that will stretch students' critical thinking and demonstrate mastery of concepts in creative and collaborative ways. They should identify opportunities for peer-to-peer active engagement activities, performance tasks, and projects to expand and extend the learning. Peer-to-peer activities may start in low-level skill sets and extend into higher-order projects that expand thinking across DOK levels 1 through 4. Look to the standards for where instruction can be released to the digital curriculum partner and where activities can be designed to extend the learning, allowing you to release to your students. Sure, there will be times when you must take the lead and conduct large and small group instruction to ensure that students are mastering standards at the appropriate depth of knowledge level. Use the standards and your wisdom to know when and where you can release the learning to technology and/or your students. This wraps up today's episode of Planning with Digital in Mind, which was the third of 5 in the series. Look for the other episodes to continue learning about how to embrace the CIA of blended learning as you adopt a blended approach in your classroom. Thank you for your time. It has been a pleasure serving you. This presentation is available on the Nevada Department of Education's YouTube channel. Come back to it anytime, and please feel free to share it with fellow educators.